In the party's military thinking, the strategies of the people's guerrilla warfare led by the party, the war against Japanese aggression as a protracted war from defense to stalemate and then to counter-offensive, and the theory and practice of strategically decisive engagement during the War of Liberation were all inseparable from the summary of the experience and lessons of China's past military thoughts and struggles, including the Peasant Wars. In the selected works of Mao Zedong, there are more than 40 comments, allusions, and historical events from Zhuo's commentaries on the Spring and Autumn Annals. The ancient classic, Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and the traditional literary masterpieces, Outlaws of the Marsh and Romance of the Three Kingdoms, have all been reflected in the military thinking of the party leaders, including Mao Zedong. The party formed the military strategy of People's War on the basis of traditional military thinking. After the failure of the Great Revolution, it came to the realization that political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. To win the revolution, the party must have its own army, and this army must be the army of the people. Mao Zedong proposed the fundamental principle that the army and the people are the foundation of victory. This principle is interlinked with just wars and the unity of just wars and benevolence in Chinese traditional military strategy. That the richest source of power to wage war lies in the masses of the people. As Mao said, that the enemy must be drowned in the vast sea of the People's War, and the whole set of strategies and tactics of the People's War. These were developments of the concept of just wars and the idea of valuing the people in Chinese traditional military thinking. The strategy of the war against Japanese aggression, a protracted war, from defense to stalemate and then to counteroffensive, also reflects Chinese traditional military thinking. Absorbing Sun Tzu's axiom, know the enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles with no danger of defeat. Mao said, "We do not permit any of our Red Army commanders to become a blundering hothead. We decidedly want every Red Army commander to become a hero who is both brave and sagacious." It was on the basis of knowing the enemy and oneself that Mao developed the idea of active defense in this protracted war, and designed the strategic path from defense to stalemate and then to counteroffensive, in accordance with the actual situation of comparative strength between the enemy and China in the early stage of the war. To illustrate this strategic decision, Mao cited the story of wiping out the enemy before breakfast. During the spring and autumn period, 770 to 476 BC, there was a war between the state of Qi and the state of Jin. Duke Qing of Qi was conceited and shouted that he would destroy the enemy before he came back for breakfast. However, he was defeated because of his impatience. Mao took this as an example to criticize the eagerness to destroy the enemy in the war against Japanese aggression, and pointed out that the strategy expressed in the principle, our war of resistance, is a protracted war, which would ultimately drag Japan down. Mao also quoted Sun Tzu as saying, "Avoid the enemy when he is full of vigor, strike when he is fatigued and withdraws," which meant wearying and depressing the enemy in order to reduce his advantage. He also cited Outlaws of the Marsh as an example to illustrate the significance of strategic retreat. The drill master Hong rushed forward to strike at Lin Chong, shouting, "Come on! Come on! Come on!" In the end, it was the retreating Ling Chong who spotted Hong's weak point and floored him with one blow. The idea of strategically decisive engagement in the War of Liberation also reflects Chinese traditional military thinking. In Problems of Strategy in China's Revolutionary War, Mao cited records on the warring states to illustrate the principle of give in order to take. If what we lose is territory and what we gain is victory over the enemy, plus recovery and also expansion of our territory, then it is a paying proposition. During the War of Liberation, Mao listed it as one of the famous 10 principles of military operation, as in, make wiping out the enemy's effective strength our main objective. Do not make holding or seizing a city or place our main objective. That was exactly what happened. In the early days of the War of Liberation, the party purposefully abandoned more than 100 cities, including Yan'an, the seat of the party's Central Committee, in the face of a massive attack by the KMT, but in return, it wiped out 37 enemy brigades, and the balance of forces between the enemy and the party changed remarkably. At the same time, the party's Central Committee ordered Liu Bocheng and Deng Xiaoping to march hundreds of miles southward into the Dabi Mountains, aiming at the enemy's heart. Subsequently, the Chinese People's Liberation Army switched from own line to enemy line operations, from strategic defense to strategic counteroffensive, thus reversing the situation of the entire war and opening the prelude to victory. They employed what Sun Tzu called the strategy of attacking the place where the enemy feels he must rush to the rescue and thus compelling him to leave his entrenched position.